The person who secretly divided your family and your soulmate's family was finally exposed. My beloved child, don't skip. Stay till the end, because this story begins with a truth that many people discover only after a long season of confusion. Sometimes the biggest battles are not created by enemies we can see, but by misunderstandings, hidden fears, and words spoken behind closed doors. Listen carefully, because what happens next changes everything in this emotional journey. Imagine two families who once shared warmth, laughter, and a beautiful connection, slowly becoming distant without fully understanding why. The conversations became shorter, the trust became weaker, and the space between two hearts grew wider. But beneath the silence, something deeper was happening, a truth waiting to be uncovered. For a long time, everyone believed the distance happened naturally. They blamed timing, circumstances, and the difficulties that life often brings. Nobody wanted to believe that outside influences could create confusion between people who genuinely cared about each other. Yet little moments started raising questions. A conversation that felt different. A message that was misunderstood. A story that changed depending on who was telling it. Slowly, the people involved began realizing that not everything they had heard was the complete truth. Don't skip, because this is where the emotional turning point begins. The person at the center of the conflict was not revealed through anger or revenge, but through the power of truth. One honest conversation opened a door that had been closed for too long. Someone finally asked the question everyone had been afraid to ask: what really happened? And when the pieces began coming together, everyone realized how easily assumptions had replaced understanding. The pain was real, but so was the opportunity to heal. Listen carefully. Sometimes people make mistakes because they are afraid. Sometimes they act from jealousy, insecurity, or their own unresolved emotions. That does not erase the damage caused, but it helps people understand that every action has a story behind it. The revelation was not just about discovering what happened, it was about recognizing how much time had been lost because people stopped communicating openly. The families began seeing that silence had allowed confusion to grow stronger than the love they once shared. Stay till the end, because the greatest surprise was not the discovery itself. It was what happened afterward. Instead of allowing anger to control the future, the people involved faced the difficult process of forgiveness and rebuilding trust. The conversations that once felt impossible finally began. Apologies were spoken. Feelings that had been hidden for years finally came into the light. And slowly, the walls that had separated hearts started coming down. The person who created confusion may have influenced the situation, but they did not have the power to decide the ending. That power belonged to the people who chose honesty over rumors and understanding over resentment. Your deepest connections are not defined only by the challenges they face. They are defined by how people respond when the truth finally appears. Sometimes a difficult chapter does not destroy a bond. Sometimes it reveals how strong that bond can become when both sides choose healing. Don't skip this final realization. Every relationship will face moments of uncertainty, but love built on respect and communication can survive storms that once seemed impossible to overcome. The most important lesson is not about blaming one person for every problem. It is about remembering that truth, patience, and compassion have the ability to repair what confusion once damaged. A new chapter can begin when people stop fighting against each other and start fighting for understanding. And as this story reaches its ending, remember this: the strongest connections are not the ones that never experience problems. They are the ones where people find the courage to face problems together. What was hidden can be revealed. What was broken can be healed. What was distant can become close again when hearts choose honesty. Sometimes the greatest transformation happens after the hardest moments, because those moments teach people the value of trust, communication, and genuine love. So carry this message with you: don't let fear write the ending of your story. Let wisdom guide your choices, let kindness shape your words, and let truth become the foundation of every connection you build. Because when the noise fades and the misunderstandings disappear, what remains is what was always meant to matter: the love, respect, and humanity shared between people who choose to understand each other. My beloved child, don't skip. Stay till the end, because the story is about to move into the part where hidden emotions finally rise to the surface and people are forced to look beyond their assumptions. After the truth began coming out, the families were left with a difficult question. How do you rebuild something that was damaged by silence, misunderstanding, and years of emotional distance? The answer was not simple. There were no magical words that could instantly erase the pain. There was only the slow, powerful process of listening, understanding, and choosing healing over pride. At first, everyone struggled with their own emotions. Some felt hurt because they wondered how they could have believed things that were never fully proven. Others felt regret because they realized they had allowed outside opinions to influence their decisions. The hardest part was accepting that good people can still make mistakes when they are acting from fear. But as the conversations continued, something began to change. The walls that had been built for protection slowly started becoming unnecessary. People who once avoided each other began sitting in the same room again, not because everything was perfect, but because they finally wanted peace more than they wanted to be right. Listen carefully, because this is where the deepest lesson appears. The person who caused confusion may have created a difficult chapter, but they did not have the power to control the entire story. The future was still being written by the choices of those who remained. They could choose anger, or they could choose growth. They could hold on to every painful memory, or they could learn from what happened and create something stronger. And slowly, the people involved began realizing that forgiveness was not about pretending nothing happened, it was about refusing to let the past continue controlling the present. Don't skip, because this changes everything. Imagine the moment when the two people at the center of this story finally have a chance to speak openly. There is hesitation at first because so many words have been waiting for so long. They remember the moments when they felt misunderstood, the times when they wondered if the connection was worth fighting for, and the nights when they questioned whether things could ever return to what they once were. But then something unexpected happens. Instead of blaming each other, they begin sharing their feelings honestly. They realize they were both carrying pain from a situation neither of them fully understood. Stay till the end, because the most powerful moments are often the quiet ones. A simple apology can carry years of emotion. A sincere conversation can heal wounds that seemed impossible to touch. A willingness to listen can rebuild trust one small step at a time. The families begin understanding that love and connection require protection. Not from every challenge, but from the misunderstandings that grow when people stop communicating. They learn that assumptions create distance, but compassion creates bridges. And then comes the realization that changes the entire direction of the story. The conflict was never only about the person who created division. It was about the lessons everyone learned through the experience. They learned the importance of asking questions before believing rumors. They learned that silence can create more damage than difficult conversations. They learned that relationships become stronger when people choose honesty, even when the truth is uncomfortable. Listen carefully. Sometimes life allows difficult moments to reveal what truly matters. The people who are meant to stay in your life are not always the ones who experience a perfect journey with you. Sometimes they are the ones willing to walk through complicated seasons, have uncomfortable conversations, and choose understanding when walking away would be easier. The strongest bonds are not created because there are no storms. They are created because people discover how to stand together when storms arrive. Don't skip the next chapter, because the final revelation is not about revenge or proving who was right. It is about freedom. Freedom from old misunderstandings. Freedom from unnecessary anger. Freedom from carrying a story that no longer serves the heart. When truth finally comes into the light, the greatest victory is not seeing someone fall, it is seeing people heal, reconnect, and find peace after everything they endured. My beloved child, don't skip. Stay till the end, because this chapter reveals the moment when broken trust begins transforming into something unexpected: understanding. After everything that happened, after every question, every misunderstanding, and every painful silence, the people involved finally reached a place where they could no longer ignore what needed to be healed. The truth had been revealed, but the journey was not over. Knowing what happened was only the first step. The real challenge was deciding what to do with that truth. For a long time, everyone carried their own version of the story. One person remembered the pain they felt. Another remembered the moments they believed they were protecting themselves. Someone else remembered words that were misunderstood and actions that were interpreted in ways they never intended. Everyone had pieces of the puzzle, but nobody had the complete picture. And when those pieces finally came together, they realized something important: sometimes people are not fighting because they stopped caring. Sometimes they are fighting because they stopped understanding each other. Listen carefully, because this is where everything begins to shift. The conversation that everyone feared became the conversation everyone needed. There were emotional moments, difficult questions, and memories that brought tears to people's eyes. But there was also something powerful happening, a sense of relief. The weight of pretending everything was fine was finally disappearing. For the first time in a long time, people were able to speak without trying to defend themselves. They were simply trying to understand. Don't skip, because this changes everything. The person you love and the people around them began seeing the situation from a different perspective. They realized that protecting a connection does not mean avoiding every difficult moment. Sometimes protecting a connection means having the courage to face those difficult moments together. It means choosing honest conversations over assumptions and choosing compassion over blame. A relationship becomes stronger when people stop asking, "Who is responsible for the pain?" and start asking, "How can we create healing from this?" Stay till the end, because the most emotional moment was not the discovery of what happened. It was seeing people who had been distant slowly begin finding their way back to each other. A simple conversation became a bridge. A sincere apology became a new beginning. A moment of understanding became the foundation for rebuilding trust. They learned that forgiveness does not erase the past, it simply gives the future a chance to become better. Listen carefully. Every family, every relationship, and every connection has moments where emotions become complicated. There will always be outside voices, unexpected challenges, and situations that test people's patience. But the connections that survive are not the ones without problems. They are the ones where people are willing to communicate, reflect, and grow. The greatest strength is not never being hurt. The greatest strength is choosing not to let hurt become the reason love disappears. And then came the realization that nobody expected. The experience that once looked like it would destroy the connection became the very thing that taught everyone its value. They became more careful with their words, more thoughtful with their choices, more aware of how easily misunderstandings can separate people who genuinely care about each other. The painful chapter became a lesson, a reminder that trust must be protected, not assumed. Don't skip this final moment, because the story is reaching its deepest truth. The person who created division may have started the storm, but the people involved decided how the storm would end. They chose healing. They chose honesty. They chose to believe that a painful past does not have to define a beautiful future. And sometimes, after everything falls apart, people discover what was strong enough to be rebuilt. The next chapter begins with a new understanding. Love is not proven by a perfect journey. It is proven by the courage to repair, the patience to listen, and the willingness to choose each other even after difficult seasons. Because when truth finally arrives and hearts finally open, what was once divided can become stronger than it ever was before. My beloved child, don't skip. Stay till the end, because this chapter reaches the moment where everyone must decide whether they will remain trapped by the pain of yesterday or step into the possibility of a better tomorrow. The truth had already changed the way people saw the past, but healing required something even deeper. It required courage. It required humility. It required people to look at each other not as enemies created by a difficult situation, but as human beings who had all been affected by confusion, fear, and misunderstanding. For so long, the distance between the two families felt impossible to cross. Every gathering carried a strange silence. Every conversation felt carefully chosen. People remembered the hurt more easily than the love that existed before the conflict began. But slowly, something started changing. A small gesture of kindness became the beginning of a new chapter. A simple message became the first step toward rebuilding trust. Nobody expected everything to return to normal overnight, but everyone began realizing that even the strongest walls can come down when people stop protecting their pride and start protecting their relationships. Listen carefully, because this is the moment where the heart learns its greatest lesson. The person who created the division was no longer the center of the story. The focus shifted from what was done to what could be healed. The families discovered that spending all their energy on anger only allowed the past to continue controlling them. They wanted peace. They wanted understanding. They wanted to create a future where the next generation would not inherit the pain of old misunderstandings. Don't skip, because this changes everything. Imagine the moment when your loved one finally sits down with you and speaks openly about everything that happened. The hesitation is still there, because some wounds take time to express. But behind that hesitation is a desire to be understood. They talk about the moments they felt lost, the times they wanted to reach out but didn't know how, and the fears that prevented them from taking the first step. For the first time, there is no need to guess what someone feels because the truth is finally being spoken. Stay till the end, because the most powerful part of this journey is not about discovering someone was wrong. It is about discovering what happens when people choose maturity over revenge. They learn that love cannot grow in an environment filled with suspicion. It needs honesty. It needs patience. It needs two sides willing to protect what matters instead of allowing outside problems to define their connection. The healing process becomes a reminder that relationships are not saved by avoiding challenges, they are saved by facing them together. Listen carefully. There is a beautiful transformation that happens when people stop asking, "Why did this happen to us?" and begin asking, "What can we learn from this?" The pain becomes a teacher. The struggle becomes a reminder. The difficult season becomes proof that communication is not just a choice, it is a responsibility. Because one misunderstood word can create distance, but one sincere conversation can begin bringing hearts back together. Don't skip this final moment, because the new beginning is closer than anyone expected. The families that once felt separated begin finding moments of peace again. The conversations become warmer. The tension slowly fades. The people involved start remembering why they cared about each other in the first place. They realize that the connection was never perfect, but it was meaningful. And meaningful things are worth protecting, repairing, and nurturing. The greatest revelation was not that someone caused a painful chapter. The greatest revelation was that love, when combined with honesty and forgiveness, can survive chapters that once seemed impossible. The past could not be changed, but the future could still be shaped. And as everyone moved forward, they carried one powerful truth with them. A relationship is not defined by the storm it faces, but by the courage people show when they choose to rebuild after the storm. This is where the next chapter begins, not with anger, not with blame, but with a renewed understanding that every heart deserves the chance to be heard. Because sometimes the strongest bonds are not created in moments of happiness. Sometimes they are created after the hardest moments, when people look at each other and say, "We have been through so much, but we are still here, and we are ready to choose healing." My beloved child, don't skip. Stay till the end, because this chapter reveals the quiet moment when a painful story begins turning into a story of growth, understanding, and a second chance. After everything that happened, after the confusion and the distance, everyone started realizing that the truth was not meant to destroy them, it was meant to wake them up. The things that were hidden had finally been brought into the light, and now there was a choice to make. Would they continue carrying the weight of the past, or would they have the courage to create something better from what they had learned? Listen carefully, because this is where the deepest emotions begin to surface. The person you love started reflecting on all the moments that were lost because of misunderstandings. They remembered the times when a simple conversation could have prevented a painful silence. They remembered the moments when pride was louder than love and when fear became stronger than the desire to reach out. But with every memory came a new understanding. The past cannot be rewritten, but the future can still be approached with a different heart. Don't skip, because this changes everything. The families began seeing that rebuilding trust was not about pretending nothing happened. It was about acknowledging the hurt and choosing not to let that hurt control every moment that came afterward. They learned that forgiveness does not mean forgetting the lessons. It means refusing to allow yesterday's pain to steal tomorrow's peace. Slowly, conversations that once felt impossible started becoming possible. The distance that once felt permanent began becoming a bridge toward understanding. Stay till the end, because the most emotional moment arrives when people finally stop waiting for someone else to make the first move. Someone chooses courage. Someone chooses honesty. Someone chooses to say the words that have been sitting in their heart for far too long. Not words filled with anger, but words filled with sincerity. I don't want us to continue carrying this pain. I want us to understand each other. I want us to find peace. And sometimes, a single honest sentence can begin healing years of silence. Listen carefully. The greatest lesson from this journey is that every connection requires protection. Not protection from every challenge, because challenges are part of life, but protection from assumptions, unnecessary pride, and communication that disappears when things become difficult. The strongest relationships are not built by people who never face problems. They are built by people who choose to face problems with patience, respect, and compassion. Don't skip this part, because something beautiful begins to happen. The people who once stood on opposite sides of the situation begin discovering that they had more in common than they realized. They all wanted the same things: peace, happiness, understanding, and the feeling of being valued. The conflict that once separated them became the very experience that taught them how important their connection truly was. The pain became a reminder to never take love, family, or trust for granted. Stay till the end, because this story is reaching its deepest realization. Sometimes life allows difficult chapters not to break people apart, but to reveal what needs healing. Sometimes the hardest conversations create the strongest foundations. And sometimes the moments that feel like endings are actually invitations to begin again with more wisdom than before. The future is not built by holding on to what hurt us, it is built by choosing what can heal us. As this chapter comes to a close, remember this: no outside situation should have the final word over your peace. The most powerful response to confusion is clarity. The most powerful response to hurt is growth. And the most powerful response to division is the decision to build bridges instead of walls. Because when people choose understanding over anger and compassion over blame, even the most difficult stories can transform into something meaningful. And now, the journey moves toward its final chapter, a chapter where the truth is no longer just something discovered, but something that changes the way everyone chooses to love, communicate, and move forward. My beloved child, don't skip. Stay till the end, because this is the final chapter, the moment when every hidden emotion, every painful misunderstanding, and every unanswered question finally leads to the most important realization. The truth that was uncovered did not come to create more anger. It came to reveal what needed healing. After everything everyone had been through, they finally understood that the greatest victory was not proving who was right or wrong. The greatest victory was finding a way back to peace, trust, and understanding. Listen carefully, because this is where the heart finds its closure. The families looked back at the journey they had traveled and realized how much they had learned. They learned that rumors can create distance, but honest conversations can create bridges. They learned that assumptions can separate people, but compassion can bring them closer. They learned that even when a connection faces its hardest season, it can still become stronger when people choose patience and sincerity over pride. Don't skip this final message, because this changes everything. The person you love also discovered something important. They realized that protecting a meaningful connection requires more than feelings. It requires action, communication, and the courage to stand for what truly matters. They understood that silence can sometimes create deeper wounds than difficult conversations. And from that moment forward, they chose to approach the future with a more open heart, not because the past disappeared, but because they finally understood how to grow from it. Stay till the end, because the most beautiful part of this story is not what was lost. It is what was rebuilt. The laughter that once felt distant slowly returned. The conversations that once felt impossible became moments of connection. The people who once stood apart found reasons to come together again. They discovered that healing does not happen in one single moment, it happens through countless small choices to forgive, to listen, and to care. Listen carefully. If this story reminds you of something in your own life, let it be a reminder that every situation deserves patience and wisdom. Not every conflict has a simple answer, and not every wound heals instantly. But every person has the ability to choose how they respond. You can choose understanding over bitterness. You can choose growth over staying trapped in the past. You can choose to protect your peace while still leaving room for love and kindness. And now, as this story reaches its ending, remember this powerful truth: a connection that is meant to bring meaning into your life is not defined by the challenges it faces. It is defined by the respect, honesty, and effort people are willing to give after those challenges appear. The strongest bonds are not the ones that never experience storms. They are the ones where people find the courage to rebuild after the storm has passed. So take this message with you. Don't let someone else's actions steal your ability to love. Don't let a painful chapter convince you that your entire story is broken. Every ending carries the possibility of a new beginning. Every lesson can become wisdom. Every difficult moment can become a doorway towards something better. My beloved child, your journey continues beyond this story. Walk forward with a heart that is open but wise. Choose truth over confusion, peace over unnecessary conflict, and kindness over anger. Because the most beautiful chapters of life are not always the ones where everything goes perfectly. They are the ones where, after everything falls apart, people discover the strength to rebuild something even more meaningful. And perhaps that is the greatest revelation of all: what is truly valuable is not protected by avoiding every challenge. It is protected by the courage to face challenges with love, understanding, and a heart willing to grow. The storm has passed, the truth has been revealed, and now a new chapter begins. Not written by fear, but by hope, healing, and the choice to move forward with peace.